In September of 2013, Chris Thieneman and April Smith went out for a drive, but by the end of the day, Chris was arrested and April had accused him of assault.
Okay, Erica, I've asked her really nice. Look at her attacking me, Erica. I'm begging her to please let me go, and she won't.
I met with Chris to hear what happened that day to get his version of events.
Talk to us about the important days surrounding this case.
The three most important days would be September the 16th, 2013. That's the day that my accuser, April Smith, had me arrested. The day before plays a big role, the 15th of September. She was trying to call some of the other girls that I was seeing, and she called one in particular, Nikki, who I later ended up marrying and I have two beautiful children with. So April was calling Nikki and telling her that, really, he wants to go to Jordan and we shouldn't allow him to go. He's going there to see other women. She said, I can't let him go and I won't let him go.
Why didn't April want you to go on this trip?
And she was fighting for her man. She was going to do whatever she could to stop me from going. The last and maybe the most important day was the Thursday before. Even though I wanted to get out of the relationship, she told the therapist that she's not ready and she's not going to allow me to break up with her.
Why were you with April that day if you wanted to break up with her?
I wanted to continue our business relationship. She owed me close to $100,000. So I wanted to be able to get my money back and be in a friendship type of relationship. And then when she was saying about her, that she wanted to hurt herself, I wanted to be there for her, so I stayed the night with her the night before. And when we got up, I thought, she was in a better place. And I said, listen, I've got to get a lot of work done before the trip to Jordan was the next day. I said, I'm going to have to go. And she walked me to the car. I try to get in and try to leave, and that's where April stops me from going.
What do you mean she tried to stop you?
She said, I can't let him go, and I won't let him go. She kind of went back into her defense mode and needed to be there with me. And as I was trying to close the door and she refused to let me go, I really had no choice. I just said, okay, you can take me around, you can drive me, just take me to the errands that I need to take.
Let's go inside the courtroom and hear more.
All rise for the jury.
Call the stand, Christopher Thieneman. Would you please tell the jury what happened on September 16th?
I agreed that I would meet with her. I said, I'll talk to you about the trip, but as long as you don't continue to tell me that I'm not going on this trip. She didn't like the answer, so she passes my building. I said, you just passed my building.
But why did you go inside the building?
We were heading to pay my contractor who was doing the hardwood flooring. And she agreed, April agreed to take me to there. But then she, at the last minute, said, well, I don't want to do this. I want to go straight to the police department. And I think that the only way we're going to be able to stay away from each other is if we put EPOs against each other. And I said, I don't need one to stay away from you. I want to. And but if you need to do that, you can do that without me. I'm out of here. I jumped out of the car, and I thought I was never going to have to see her again. And she snapped.
What happened?
I thought the further I got away from her, she would have to get back in that car. I said, I'm not going in that car. I said, you better get back. But I knew where else I could go. If I got into that building in my unit and locked the door, she would have to go back to her car. I got in, she is in, and like a wild animal is coming after to get that phone. I raised up, held my phone up here, and kept it from her. Watched her take off running.
Chris, did you ever find out why it was so important that April had to get her phone back?
Later, I had found out that she had some video of me, and she had planned on using it to blackmail me. And we found emails where she was trying to write a book.
Okay, what did you do then?
I watched her take off running. I walked back, and all of a sudden, I see her just going, my car was stolen. Just bawling, screaming, out of control. I called 911, and I figured, hey, I did my part. I called 911. They said, we'll have someone right out there. And like in a split second, one car comes, and then another car comes. They said, "You're under arrest, put your hands behind your back." And I asked, "Would you please tell me what I'm arrested for?"
They arrested you when you're the one who tried to get away from her car?
None of this seemed normal. I mean, when you call the police about a stolen vehicle, and that's what you think you're talking about, I just sat there and waited for them, what I figured as a witness, that they would come and ask me some questions.
I can't believe you just got your car stolen. This is Metro 691 number. The civil towards your emergency.
Somebody just stole April Smith's car.
Is it taken from?
2318 Brownsville Road. I got out of the car, she got in an argument, left her car running, and somebody took it and took off.
What, somebody just walked up and took it?
Yeah. I mean, we weren't gone 3 minutes from there.
Is this a business residence or what?
No, it's in the middle of the street.
If April believes you assaulted her, why isn't she screaming, "He assaulted me," in her 911 phone call?
Because it didn't happen.
And what was your reaction?
She's crazy about her car being stolen, but never mentioned once to the 911 caller that she had been assaulted. So that's why it was never in my thought process. And then they just automatically took her word that I assaulted her, even though there wasn't a mark on her. I never did touch her.
The police didn't ask you any questions after they handcuffed you and told you were under arrest?
They would never allow me to tell them my side of the story. Those officers did not care to hear anything, any word from me.
This is Wave 3 News.
The prominent Louisville businessman who's run for office is accused of attacking his girlfriend during a fight.
Monday afternoon, police arrested former mayoral candidate and U of L football player Chris Thieneman.
She said Thieneman put his arm around her neck and tried to strangle her. After getting free, she called police. The arrest report also said the woman's car was stolen during the argument.
Talk to me about what role the media had in this and how it affected people's reactions to the case.
Well, that's the disappointing thing about the media. Most people think if it's on the news, then it's true. It was just very disappointing that the media can basically report what they want, and the people are going to believe it. Fortunately, my attorney got me out in time, and I did make my trip to Jordan.
Chris Thieneman was released on his own recognizance just a few hours after he was arrested on Monday. Now, according to his attorney, the incident involved a woman that he was involved with, and this is all a big misunderstanding.
Thieneman's lawyer says he's the one who called police because the woman's car ended up getting stolen. After police arrived, Thieneman was arrested and charged with one endangerment.
If you lived in Louisville and watched the newscast, you would think it was April who called the police, when in fact, it was you.
It's obvious I am the one who called 911, but yet the media is portraying like April had called 911.
In April's verified complaint, you would assume that April made the 911 phone call.
Ms. Smith, do you recall filing a verified complaint? You know what one is?
I have no idea.
Do you recognize that? It says, it was to state that I have read the foregoing verified complaint and the statements contained therein are true to the best of my knowledge and belief, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you say April was able to get free and call the police.
That is not true.
You swore to this, Miss Smith.
I did, but the way I read that, I understood it to be that Christopher called the police.
Okay, so let's read this and see how that was misunderstood. April was able to get free and call the police. The way you understand that, that means Mr. Thieneman called the police?
That's the way I understood it, because I did not call the police.
Wait a minute, how can anyone read that document and actually think it means something different?
If you look at the testimony from April, she was going back and forth and contradicting herself.
Isn't that perjury? It sounds like April's trying to cover up a lie with another lie.
I thought when she was willing to go that far, that there was something wrong.
Before we go any further, you heard the 911 call?
Yes.
Mr. Thieneman made the call, correct?
Yes.
And there's a female voice at the beginning of that call.
I don't remember.
Your Honor, could we play that again?
If you're okay with it, I'll allow it.
Okay.
believe you just got your car stolen.
Stop. You hear the female voice in there? Is that you?
It may be, yes.
It may be. Okay, you can see.
I can clearly hear that's a woman's voice on that tape.
I had quite a few of my friends who listened to the 911 call say the same thing.
It sounded like it said you were committing perjury. Did you hear that?
I never said that.
Can we listen to it one more time?
I never said that.
Committing perjury.
I can't believe you just got your car stolen.
This is an exercise number. Civil Georgia emergency.
Someone says that at the beginning of the tape. Did you yell that?
No, I said, if I said anything about perjury, I said you asked me to commit perjury.
So now you're saying that Chris had asked you to commit perjury. Is that right?
Yes.
Experts would later say that it was not possible for April to be across the street during the 911 call.
So which one's the truth?
It sounds like April's trying to cover up a lie with another lie.
Well, I was already under the impression that I was being set up just for the fact that I was arrested. And knowing that we brought the police there for the stolen vehicle, not for any other reason. I figured I was going to get out of this because I didn't do anything. I didn't even understand why they were arresting me in the first place. I started thinking, I said, I think that I was set up. I think that April must have, instead of telling the officers about the car being stolen, she must have told them that I assaulted her, thinking that this was going to be the way to get me to not go on this trip the next morning. And I was thinking, wow, she said she was going to do whatever she could to keep me from this trip. And I'm thinking she might just have succeeded.
Chris's attorney tried to get a copy of the police interview of April that was conducted the day of the incident.
I had asked my attorney after I was arrested, what did she accuse me of? Because they never told me what they were really accusing me of. So my attorney said, well, they've interviewed her. Let's get the tape. And my attorney tried to get it instantly, right after the incident happened. But yet they kept ignoring our pleas for a copy of the tape. And then they said a month later they have a copy of it, and it was a duplicate copy. The first one, she said, was accidentally erased.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
It didn't make sense then, and it still does not make sense today.
Let's go into the courtroom and see what Detective Phelps had to say on the stand.
Ms. Phelps, you said that you took a taped statement from her. Is that correct?
I did. I recorded our conversation. We were in a private office in the intake center.
How was that recorded?
We were given digital recorders in the unit, and you can download it into a computer and make discs. But I just remember being very small, and it traveled in my call-out bag.
Were you able to provide that taped statement to the prosecution?
I provided a subsequent taped statement to the prosecution. Several weeks after that, I was with a victim's advocate, and I was speaking with another victim, and I noticed that it was beeping and malfunctioning, and I looked, and the victim's advocate, Vicki Edmonds, looked, and it was deleting itself.
Was anyone able to retrieve that initial statement?
No, we made 3 attempts, but nobody was able to retrieve the device.
Talk to me about the tape that was mysteriously erased.
No expert that we have spoke to was able to say that a tape recording could start erasing itself.
So did you decide to ask April Smith for a second tape statement?
I did.
And was she amenable to that?
Yes.
Okay. And did she in fact give you a second tape statement?
Yes, we did a subsequent tape statement so I could provide it.
Detective Phelps did a second tape recording of April on September 16th, a month after the incident took place.
We didn't even get the original interview. And then Steve was saying, how do we even know if this second interview is the same as the first? And then that's when they said that the original tape was accidentally erased. But yet we did a follow-up interview, and that's what you're going to have.
What is the typical practice of the LMPD when you make a recorded statement of a alleged victim or even a witness?
I don't think there is a typical practice.
I've never heard that. I've asked other officers. I know that since this was such a high-profile case, I was all over the news. Anyone that I talked to would say they would have taken care of that and put it in the computer not to be destroyed.
Would you normally preserve something like that as evidence, though, potentially?
Yes.
Okay, you wouldn't, like you say, you wouldn't intentionally delete it.
No.
Because it could be evidence, correct?
Yes.
Right. In this case, somehow the initial interview got deleted.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever discover how that happened?
They were unable to tell me how it happened. I had several different IT techs with Louisville Metro look at the device. They were unable to determine how it happened, but the information on the device was unrecoverable. Any information that was there prior was unrecoverable.
They didn't even give us the tape to see if we could fix it. So that's why we were able to start to think that this is a setup.
Chris, do you believe Amy Phelps had a vendetta against you?
Absolutely, I do. I think it was not accidentally erased. I think they did that on purpose. They didn't want us to have that first version because it wouldn't match up. It wouldn't help them convict me. They wanted to do everything they could to have their conviction on me. And that first tape, in our expert opinion, was not going to justify that.
Does Detective Amy Phelps have something personal against Chris Thieneman? When she was subpoenaed, she told the courier to tell Chris to go fuck himself.
So it was about a month later she came back in and was re-interviewed, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were aware at that time that she had filed a civil lawsuit?
I believe so, yes.
Steve wants to remind the jury that if Chris is convicted of assault, April can go after him for money. That's why her civil attorney is in the courtroom.
Ms. Smith, I want to ask you about your civil suit. Did you call your civil attorney last night?
Yeah, I spoke with him.
Okay. So when you left here, you talked to your civil attorney about this case? I don't want to know anything that was said, but you did call your civil attorney, correct?
I spoke with my civil attorney.
That's Mr. Clay?
Yes.
And he's in the courtroom today?
He is.
That's all.
The financial part came early. I mean, there was requests for money from her attorney, and I said, no way, I'm not giving her a dime. I didn't do anything. So we knew that that was motivation.
You're asking for compensatory damages for your fright, shame, embarrassment, humiliation, mental anguish, and physical pain and discomfort to be determined by a jury, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if you'll flip to the page before that, on number 3, you ask for punitive damages in an amount sufficient to punish the defendant for his willful, wanton, oppressive, and malicious conduct. Is that correct?
Yes.
How much money do you hope to get from Mr. Thieneman out of this?
I have no idea at this point.
You have no money. You're going to get as much as you can, though, right?
I have not totaled this up right now. My focus is on being a witness to this trial, and after that I will total up all of my medical expenses and loss, and then we will come to a conclusion on what is relevant.
If she was really focused on being a witness, why did she call her civil attorney the night before her next day in trial?
After you filed your lawsuit, you got interviewed again, correct?
Yes.
And there's no way for us to know whether or not the interview on the 18th matches what you said right after the event, is there? We don't have that, do we, to compare the two?
No.
Chris's attorney was able to find pictures of April's neck from right after the incident, where there wasn't a mark on her.
Now, why does all this boil up here? I looked at the photos. I looked at what she says in the ambulance. I don't need an expert to tell me something happened between here and here. I don't know what. I don't know if there was any intervening cause. I don't know if she did it to herself. I don't know if she exaggerated her injury. I don't know. But you only have to look at what happened here and what happened here to know, hey, something happened between there. And it wasn't Chris Thieneman. She'd gotten him arrested.
In April's verified complaint, she said she felt fingernail marks on her neck, but the prosecution never mentioned this or showed it.
My first reaction was that I wasn't concerned because I know I didn't do anything to her neck, so they could not have had anything on her neck from me. And what my attorney had found out was the hospital took pictures. And then a couple hours later, the detective took another set of pictures. We know that from the pictures from the hospital that there was nothing on her neck. And then he said the pictures from the police department, the detective, had red marks on it. So fortunately, we were able to get both copies and show them to the jury.
This seems like such a weak case.
It just reiterated what we had already been discussing, that we were being set up. that this is a collusion. This is someone that's going after this man for whatever reason.
Do you think April was ever really scared of you?
No, I mean, if you look at how she approached me at the beginning of the morning on the 13th, and then by that time she was jumping out of her car to chase me down the street, she wasn't scared of me. She had no reason to be.
She has every opportunity to run or yell for help, but she never did.
And never in a million years did I think that when I jumped out of the car that she was going to leave her vehicle running in the middle of the road with traffic behind her to chase me down the street. I thought when I was leaving her that I was going to my safe place.
Now, Ms. Smith, had you simply stayed in the car and driven to the police station, you could have reported that your phone was stolen, couldn't you? And we wouldn't be here, correct?
I didn't want to report my phone stolen. I just wanted my phone back.
Ms. Smith, my question was, nothing prevented you from simply putting the car in gear and driving on and reporting your phone stolen.
I was not thinking about that at the time.
Exactly.
It was just an instinctive reaction.
Instinctive reaction for you is to get out of the car, leave it running, and go after the phone, correct?
I was concentrating on getting my phone back.
This is where Steve makes a strong point to the jurors.
How angry must someone be to leave a running car parked on a 4-lane highway? What is their state of mind?
The other things that were in that vehicle that women never want to be without: their purse. She left her $1,000 Canon camera that I purchased for her $1,000+ Apple computer that I bought. She left all of her valuables in a running vehicle in the middle of the road to chase me. She felt like he's getting away from me, and if he leaves, I may never see him again.
Would you state your full name, please?
I'm Nikki Cooper.
Okay, Nikki, do you know April Smith?
I do know who she is, yes.
And how is it that you know who she is?
I know who she is because she's called me a few times.
Do you remember whether she called you in connection with Chris going to Jordan?
Yes.
Okay. What do you recall about that phone call when she called you?
She called me because she wanted me to convince Chris to not go on this trip to see another woman.
And what was your understanding why she didn't want Chris to go see another woman?
She didn't want Chris to go see another woman because she didn't want him to leave her.
That's all.
Next, we open up the case further by taking you into April's deposition.
The night before this incident, then, you're on the phone with a girl in Chicago that Chris is involved with, and you all are discussing that he's involved with a relationship with you, and you just want her to know that.
Yes. I wanted to make sure that she knew that he was still sleeping with me and we were still in a relationship.
Our prosecutor, Ingrid Geiser, knew from phone records that April had spoken to Nikki the day before. But yet Ingrid wanted them to go back in deliberations thinking that Nikki was saying something that was not true.
The prosecutor tried to get the jury to believe April would never talk to Nikki. Listen for yourself.
Miss Nikki, his new girlfriend to whom he's engaged, they have a child. I mean, obviously she loves him and she's here to do whatever she can to help him out. She said that she talked to April, I believe she said twice in a short period of time. April did not want the defendant to go to Jordan.
As the prosecutor is telling the jury that, I said, we have phone records to prove that, Ingrid. We have April admitting in her deposition that she spoke to.
Okay, she said she doesn't know April, that she had never met her, but yet she says they were having these conversations on the telephone. So take that for what you will.
Why would you want to tell the jury, why would you want them to have a question whether they spoke the day before of my arrest, other than to get a conviction without finding the truth?
The prosecutor says, take that for what you will, all along knowing April called Nikki. Chris, were there other things the prosecution took issue with?
Well, unbeknownst to me on September the 16th, but there was a witness to the entire incident that was watching April and me outside. And Not until about 3 days later did my attorney send me an email and say, hey, the media found a witness to you, and we need to get him. His name is Pedro Gomez.
Do you recognize this gentleman here?
Yes.
Okay, and what do you remember about him?
When he was walking down the street and a lady was behind him yelling and screaming. But he didn't say anything, he didn't say a word. And then the police told him to turn around, to put the handcuffs. He turned around, they put the handcuffs and took him away. But he was doing anything wrong.
When I had to go into court with my attorney, I heard him say at least once to the prosecutor that why aren't we discussing this? Why aren't we talking about the witness that watched it?
There's one other thing, and I felt sorry for this witness, and that was Pedro Gomez. Bless his heart, he was the witness, do you remember? He was across the street. And he says, yeah, I saw it. I saw this man. I saw him, he was calm. And I saw that woman, and she was screaming out of control, yelling loudly.
The prosecutor, Ingrid Geiser, never wanted to discuss anything about this case. Never wanted to mention back in 2013 that we had this witness.
Now, Mr. Gomez, the restaurant worker, where did he come from? That restaurant's not even there anymore. How did we find him after 3 years?
They were accusing me of witness tampering in her closing arguments. She was saying that I found this witness, planted him, and told him what to say. And we were never able to defend ourselves and to tell her that we've had him since 3 days after my arrest.
And you have proof that this is real.
We have emails showing that the prosecutor knew that we had our witness from 3 days after the arrest.
This is where the prosecutor tries to get the jury to believe Pedro Gomez is lying.
He said he's inside the restaurant, but he heard EMS say the victim was fine. She was just fine. Now, who told him that? Who do you think told him that?
She's accusing me, pointing to me, and sitting in that chair next to my attorney, hearing the prosecutor saying whatever she could to get a conviction, even to the point where she knowingly lied to say that I planted this witness, was just heartbreaking.
Chris, tell me about the Thursday before the incident where you tried to get Larry Mudd to help you break up with April.
I called him. I said, listen, I'm going on this trip to Jordan. I need to speak with you right away, and I need to bring you April Smith in with me. And so she was a guest of mine. We sat in there and discussed our relationship and how I wanted to get out of the relationship. So Larry turned to her and said, April, how do you feel about this? Well, I'm not ready to break up with him, and we're not going to break up. And that's when he said, well, we'll just have to talk about this when you get back from your trip.
Did you ever tell anybody, I don't want him going, I'm not going to let him go? Ever do that?
I don't remember that, no.
Ever beg him not to go?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you did not want him to go to Jordan?
I was not in favor of it, no.
So right in this, so which one's the truth?
As a matter of fact, he wanted to break up with you and you didn't want to break up, did you?
That came and went, and I was very confused about that. That was a very confusing situation.
And at this meeting with the therapist, though, you acknowledged that Chris said he wanted to end the relationship with you, and you said, I'm not ready to end the relationship, correct?
I did say that.
Okay.
April got herself caught up in a lie that was extremely hard to believe, and yet she kept finding a way to make it even worse for herself.
Steve said, we're doing such a great job telling our case to the jury. They're trying to throw a Hail Mary and try to accuse you of other things.
And can you read the addendum to us?
Looking back to the notes stemming March 20th, 2013, where the initial more aggressive violent act occurred at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. This has resulted in a labral tear in her shoulder, which we have been treating with PRP injections at this point in time, as Ms. Smith is unable to take time off from work to meet her financial needs in order to have surgery to repair this.
What actually happened to your shoulder, April?
We were in a hotel room, and I walked out of the hotel room, and walked down the street and he chased after me and grabbed my left arm and twisted it up behind my back and began pushing me upward to where the tear occurred right here between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
Chris, tell me more about the incident in New Orleans where April was injured.
I saw what happened. I saw the man pull April's arm back and incidentally hurt her shoulder. So that's why I was supportive of her.
So you're saying that you had nothing to do with the injury to April's shoulder, but yet you agreed to pay for all the damages?
I watched what happened. I didn't do it.
Okay, that wasn't my question. You didn't do what happened to April, but you agreed to pay for all the damages.
I did not physically do that. I watched it.
Mr. Thieneman, listen to my question, please. The question is, you're stating that you did not do the injury to April in New Orleans, but that you agreed to pay for it. Is that correct?
I personally did not do it, and I agreed to pay for her expenses.
Okay. So you felt a lot of control in that issue, in that situation?
Well, April was in control.
Okay. Nothing further.
Before I had a chance to tell the jury, she cut me down. They were blaming me for her injury in New Orleans. It was just another example of her trying to hide and keep the truth from coming to the jury.
When you went to the hospital, did you tell them everything that had happened?
I did.
Did you tell them the truth?
I did.
Have you always told your medical people the truth?
Yes.
Always?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
My father, who was my idol, he always told me, he said, if you always tell the truth, you never have to remember what you say. And if you look at the testimony from April, she was going back and forth and contradicting herself.
After your lawsuit was filed, did you ever call a medical provider, tell them to change your medical records?
No.
Did you call Dr. Shea's office and tell them about an shoulder injury you claimed you had that was now Chris Thieneman's fault?
I did.
You did ask them to change your record, didn't you?
No, I did not ask them to change my record.
What did you told them all along about the injury?
I did not tell them.
You did not tell Dr. Shea that you had a shoulder injury from New Orleans?
I did.
You told him you had a history of left-sided shoulder pain on March 5th, 2013. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Then on March 20th, Ms. Smith has a history of left-sided shoulder pain and instability. This all stems from what she thinks was playful activity in New Orleans. You remember saying that to the doctor?
I do.
Okay, so you told him your left-sided shoulder pain was playful activity in New Orleans, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You saw him again on May 1st and said Ms. Smith has a history of left-sided SLAP lesion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then on June 25th, Ms. Smith has a history of left-sided shoulder labral tear. She has a worsening pain and symptoms, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then in July 24th, you told him Ms. Smith has a history of left-sided shoulder pain and rotor cuff, tendonitis, tendinopathy, as well as labral tear at the 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock position. She is planning a trip to Thailand September 3rd. Ms. Smith has left-sided shoulder pain. She has recently returned from Thailand. She was there on holiday and has gone through a reflexology course. She has known labral tear in the left shoulder at 12 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then on 10/1, the day you signed your verified complaint, you told him a different story about this left-sided shoulder pain, didn't you?
Yes.
You told him Chris Thieneman caused this, correct?
Correct.
And that was the same day that you signed your verified complaint, wasn't it?
I do not know that it was the same day.
Would you like to see your medical records?
Sure.
You had told him before that this was all playful activity in New Orleans.
I did.
And on the date of your verified complaint, that changes, correct? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when you told him this was playful activity in New Orleans, that was false. You did lie, correct?
When I told him it was playful activity?
Yes.
I did.
You did lie. Well, I just asked you if you had ever lied to a medical provider, and you said no.
We were exposing the truth by getting April to say the things, contradicting herself, lying in certain parts of it, and getting her own prosecutor admitting that April was lying. We felt like we were in a great place.
When he testified and Mr. Pence was asking him questions, boy, that was so smooth. Wasn't that smooth testimony? just not a kink in a question or an answer. Everything was just very smooth.
I kind of just laughed when she was saying that I was smooth. I mean, I was just telling the truth, and it was coming out from my heart. I mean, why isn't the truth more important than a victory with a conviction? Why is that?
This case is not about a medical record that April lied about.
Steve wants to remind the jury that if Chris is convicted of assault, April can go after him for money.
In the middle of testimony, we take a break last night. Who does she go talk to? My civil lawyer. Why? Why? Because she wants you to make her case for money. This is a case where she is trying to cash in.
Steve hits this hard and makes his point to the jurors.
There's a third thing that happened that's beyond dispute that happened in the last half hour. And that was the questioning by the prosecutor on the New Orleans thing. I asked Chris, did you hurt April Smith in New Orleans? No, he said. Prosecutor gets up and says, then let me cross-examine you. Why did you agree to pay her bills? I saw it. Oh, she stopped him. Do you recall that? Prosecutor, the government, stops and says, don't answer that. Don't say it again. I asked you, did you agree to pay for the bills? Yes, but let me tell you, it's because I saw what happened. Did the prosecutor ask, what did you see happen?
We tried to track down the prosecutor. She denied our request for an interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of you can answer this. Have you reached a verdict?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Mr. Thieneman, will you please rise? Under instruction number 1, assault in the 4th degree, we, the jury, find you not guilty under instruction number 1.
If you believe in yourself, you can do anything.
If you're ready to go, you are free to leave. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Chris was found not guilty.
I think the system is going to change. I think this is an epidemic. We have the highest rate of incarceration, and it's from situations like this that we need to stand up to, and that's what I feel like I'm doing.